Thank you everyone for joining us for another Coffee Mornings episode 4, Proactive Candidate Engagement with me, Sam Ingram, and my lovely co-host,
Robbie, back for episode 4.
Episode 4, yes, and a good journey it's been so far. We've had some fantastic guest speakers in the house. We've covered some good content between you and myself, and now we're going to cover even more good content.
Absolutely.
With this candidate engagement piece. What's this one all about, Robbie?
To be fair, a really hot topic, especially with some of the work that I've been doing, is around proactive candidate engagement. I think the outside perception at the moment is that there's hundreds of thousands of candidates that have been made redundant and are looking for work. But I think the truth is, and I think it's highlighted especially at a more senior level, is that good quality candidates are still in work.
Yep.
And they're not sitting there going, I need to get out of here ASAP. 90% of the conversations we're having, that's not an official stat, but 90% of the conversations we're having at the moment are, I'm happy where I am, but is the grass greener? There is still this unwavering doubt in a lot of people's mind around funding and job security. So I think everyone's a bit more open to say, look, I'll have that informal conversation, and that whole kind of key word from today, be a little bit more proactive in where I'm looking at what else is out there.
Yeah.
So that's what we're kind of talking about in terms of, from a candidate perspective, kind of keeping your finger on the trigger, so to speak, to those new opportunities. But I think the biggest thing is for clients to be a bit more proactive in the market as well, and not just, I need to hire when I get the funding. It's run it alongside, because that's what your competitors are going to be doing. Plan
ahead and strategize. And if you're just looking at adverts, you're only seeing a very minute part of the market ultimately, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. We've kind of seen it a lot, right? And I think in the biotech world, it's ever so present, is that it's a case of, we need to raise Series A, we're waiting on the data, that will decide what and when and if we need to hire. But I think what we kind of fall into is these traps of, right, okay, we've received positive data or we've got the funding, but then you're kind of 2-3 months behind, because now you've got to go out and find people.
Yeah, and the pressure's on.
And a lot of times, if these people aren't looking, there isn't this abundance of talent that can just jump through the door tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, you need to kind of strike while the irons are hot, really. So that's kind of what we're going to be breaking down, looking at different strategies on how you can do that, and ultimately just act faster, secure the best talent.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people fall into this hole of, I've got a job signed off, I need to go hire, advertise, and the rest of it magically kind of just works. And I think that can work for certain different types of roles, but I think if you're looking for highly skilled employees of any kind of capacity, it's not the only silver bullet you've got. You have so many other things that you can do. You could use us, for example. Let's plug that for 1 second. We always leave us till last. I'm sick of doing that.
Yeah.
It's like, if you want to look for passive candidates, that's what agencies do day in and day out for like 10 hours a day per person. They know the passive people before anyone else, really. So I think that's a really great one. Use agencies, outsource it. If you want speed and quality, you come talk to us. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone can want to use agencies because of costings and things like that. But then let's get creative then. So what can you do from an internal perspective to keep the costs reasonable, but get the same sort of effect that you're looking for? I've had some ideas, and obviously I've worked quite a lot internally over the past couple of years with different customers within our kind of embedded solution, and I think being more visible online is just the easiest one that people just don't do enough of. Put an advert out, it's fine. Chuck it out on LinkedIn, you'll get some people there, but talking about your company, the values, the culture, testimonials, doing video interviews, it really kind of paints a great picture for the passive market. And let's be clear, the passive market are those who could be interested in your company but aren't actively applying.
Yeah.
So we're bringing them to market, right? And there's so many people like that. I mean, how many headhunt calls do you do where they go, I wasn't looking, but...
Most, if not all. If unless it's someone that's actively come to us and we've reached out to them, it is the same conversation.
Isn't it?
And to be honest with you, even when we're going on client meetings a lot at the moment, it's kind of going, this is what we do and this is how we can help the business, and you're looking for X, Y and Z, we can support with that. There's always that last little bit just before you jump off the call where someone goes, And by the way, I might be looking myself, so maybe keep
Yeah.
an eye out. And everyone's kind of in that space where they're always keeping one eye open.
I think in that biotech space, like you said, it's almost goes hand in hand to a point, because the confidence and the funding is lower than it has been historically. So unless you're kind of sitting there with hundreds of millions just invested, your security levels are lower, so you've got to keep an eye out. And where the cost of living here in the UK is so much more significant than what it was, I think you'd almost be seen not to kind of keep your options open.
Yeah, 100%.
You know?
100%. Like, I think that passive candidate piece as well is kind of that snowball effect that we talk about of one person leaves, especially, you know, I was, again, relating it to football as I always do, but we've seen it, right? Klopp's leaving Liverpool at the end of the year. I'm not heartbroken or distressed or distraught, but if you've been in the office, you might have a different opinion. But all of a sudden, another manager leaves. I know there's this merry-go-round of people leaving, and when you get to these senior level roles, which tends to be where passive candidates are, 9 times out of 10, I think when people have worked their way up to that senior management, that just by nature of the beast, there are less opportunities because you can only have one head of R&D or one head of
unless
CMC.
you're the head of.
Yes, unless
Which
you're
you've seen.
head of sales.
I'm the head of sales.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Well, I'm the head of sales.
Yes.
The clues in the title.
Yeah, the 80s. What a time.
Yeah. It'll never take off the internet.
No, never take off.
You know who you are.
Yeah, he's not online, is he? Let's be honest.
He's not here.
But yeah, exactly that. Like, you can only have a certain amount of senior people. You can't have 2 CEOs, but I've seen a few companies that have, but 9 times out of 10 you can only have one COO, CFO. So when you get to that level, there's not as many opportunities out there, but it takes one person to leave and someone else fills their shoes, and everyone kind of goes round in a circle.
And a lot of the time people don't like advertising those types of positions so openly either.
No.
If you're looking to replace, particularly because someone's left, it's quite rarely you actually see, hey, we're looking for a CSO or a CEO. Why is that? Well, someone's left. And it doesn't happen.
No.
You end up going down executive search route, don't you? Or using your network, using your your reference points that way. And again, that's an easy one, right? But the whole point here is that I think if you are looking to scale in any kind of capacity, you're looking to hiring capacity, you should be looking at the passive market as well as the active one, because the active one only tells you who's kind of here looking for a job today. That's all it tells you. It doesn't give you the best person in the market.
No.
It really doesn't. Like, and don't get me wrong, you can get some really fantastic candidates that are just ready and available to work. Situations do happen.
And when you need to scale at pace, that is perfect.
You go, right?
There's the funding. You need to hire 30, 40 people.
Yeah.
By the end of the month, 2 months, 3 months. You go, okay, the active market, there's some really good people in there. And that's fantastic. But typically when you're doing that growth, you're not hiring, say, 10 VPs, 10 heads of. You're looking, we need scientists, principals, we need, on the fintech side, we need analysts, we need managers. We don't need people to run the show from the top down. We might need 1 or 2, but typically they are coming first. Yeah,
well, you know what happens is you put these things out there and you get really great candidates that apply that aren't right for that role. So you've got to think about that too, right? Like, they are passive later, so you could miss out on them because they're not right for that particular role. But this is where pipelining comes in so handy, that if you spoke to someone 6 months ago, a year ago, that would have been brilliant, but didn't have the right role for them, or the time wasn't right, whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean that door's closed forever. And I know we've seen it with some clients that go, well, they said no to us, we could never hire them now. And you think, you moron. Like, time moves on, things change. And I'm a big believer in that, because weirdly enough, a live situation, I had someone call me yesterday. Well, called me last week, actually, text me out of the blue, hadn't spoken to me in ages, and they were like, can we just have a chat? And so, yeah, cool. Like, we didn't get to kind of work together at the time. Trying to be careful with my words here. We didn't work together at the time, but there could be an opening now. And we had a conversation, and that's exactly what's happened. And we had this chat around, this is the reason why I didn't work last time. I'm like, it's fine. Like, decisions were made. You're an adult, I'm an adult, we'll get over it, it's fine. But we left it open enough that there is an opportunity, and we're having that conversation now. And that was about 2 years ago. So I think you've always got to have that in the back of your mind in this market, that the top talent is working, they're in high demand. So building kind of pipelines and relationships with the people that aren't immediately in your vicinity actually pays off longer term. But I've always found that as a recruiter, it's always been that same way.
Yeah, definitely.
Not every call you get is going to be that candidate for that specific job 100% of the time, but it could be something for 6 months later, a year later. That's why we keep them on an ATS system, right? To go back to it later on, to kind of go, I remember having that chat with you, and remember this is a situation. Now I've got a perfect opportunity for you. And I've left it in such a good state that I'm able to just pick up the phone and have that chat.
Yeah.
And really all this is doing is basically saying, act more like an agency. That's really what you want to do. Just be more like us.
Yeah. Do you know what?
Basically.
Yeah. Without patting our backs too much, it kind of is that. It's just, I think if companies don't want to go to agencies for cost or because you think we're...
Then act like one.
Yeah. Yeah. You come here for a good time. Whatever reasons you don't want to use agencies, us or anyone else, you need to act like an agency. You can't expect that people will just come to the door because you've got great benefits and you're,
what about a
really
fruit
cool
bowl
site.
in the kitchen?
Oh, don't. The fruit bowl is the epitome of don't work for us. Not because I love fruit.
I love fruit.
I'm not the healthiest of people.
You get someone go, can I choose the fruit? Absolutely not.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a limit on the fruit. It's just grapes.
Yeah, just grapes.
And they're so old, they're now raisins. They're just...
It's basically just cartons of raisins.
Yeah. It's just like being at a nursery. It's like, do I get like a carton of milk as well at lunch?
Yeah.
But even if you've got the most alluring package in the world, it doesn't... If you're not going to act like an agency to a degree of kind of looking at contingency plans, and I think when we talk about candidate pipelining, that's a lot of it. What it boils down to is contingency plans of, okay, we've got our CFO, we've got our head of finance. What if they leave tomorrow and say, do you know what, I've had enough, I'm not coming back to work, don't bother paying me my notice, I'm gone.
Yep.
What do you do then? Because then you might have to wait 3 months to find someone. And how much is that going to cost you? But if you've already looked at it saying, well, not that we're going to replace our CFO because we love them and love what they're doing, but if they do go, we've got some people in mind that we could reach out to just to say, hey, this is coming up.
This works internally as well, right?
Yeah. It doesn't have to be external. We're talking about being proactive. It's a case of going, okay, who have we got? And I think that contingency plan kind of goes into that L&D and that kind of nurturing internal talent to go, okay, who can we identify to move up the ranks and who can be future leaders and how can we reduce costs that way?
Yeah.
Because they know the business better, you'd think at least. 9 times out of 10, those internal hires that have gone up through the business work out better in the long term as well.
Because they know it, they work through it.
Yeah, because they kind of know what's been through. They know the processes, they know how the business works, they already know the pain problems that are in there. And then you can hire back down the chain where you'd think cost-wise it would be cheaper. If you are having to go to agencies or...
Yeah, it is.
Paying out new salaries.
Yeah, because there's a huge cost in kind of hiring new people, right? Not just the fees associated with agency, but the embedding period and getting to know processes and stuff. Like this idea that someone kind of comes in, hits the ground running immediately. It's true if you kind of hit it right from a skills perspective, but from process and culture and values, that still takes a bit of time to bed in. But this idea that workforce kind of planning, contingent planning is a good one. And let's face it, if you're in any sort of like talent acquisition, HR type role, you're more in the know about the movement of personnel within your organization than an external factor, right? So you can almost keep an eye on particular areas, particular skill sets that you feel that may need boosting in the future, particularly if you're like a preclinical biotechnology company, right, that's going through Series A, Series B, you're moving into manufacture. Chances are you're going to need some sort of quality production scientist, QC. You can almost predict it. You don't know the volumes, don't know the full skill set. Don't really need to, though, do you?
No.
Because you just know they're the kind of typical things you need to hire for. Same with IT. If you're building like a system, an API kind of from scratch, it's going to need a front end. It's going to need designers that you can start loading that from the front. So when the time comes, you've already kind of got your portfolio of people to go to. That's what we do as agencies every day, right? So that's a great way, but if you don't want to go down that road, because it's quite labour intensive in terms of like data collection and whatnot, you could actually do it through content marketing, which is ultimately kind of getting your business to be more visual online through LinkedIn is probably the best place to be there, right?
Yeah.
And those passive candidates can just observe your business as you're kind of posting, and they're getting a sense of things by just looking and observing of what you're doing. A lot of Instagram people do this, So
Yeah.
Amy calls herself this. She's my wife. She's like an observer. She doesn't post anything. She just observes and follows. And I was like, she's just stalking people.
Yeah.
But this is why Instagram is so powerful, because you don't actually have to engage with it. You just need to follow people that are engaging. And that's the key. So be engaging,
Yeah.
And the next question that I get with that one is, so how do I do that? Just be yourself.
Yep.
Easiest one. Just be your natural self. That is your USP, 100%. So again, great one. Testimonials, new starters, videos, interviews with managers through like cheap webinars and stuff like that. You can all post online for practically free.
Most people have an iPhone nowadays. How good is the camera quality on that?
Yeah.
Yvonne's given me probably a side eye as a videographer. Oh, she's agreeing. Wow. So the iPhone is better than the cameras.
There you go. You heard it here first.
Yeah. So you use the iPhone. You can use your iPhone.
Yeah.
Just
Already smart device.
Any phone before Samsung is knocking on the doors.
Why not us?
But just doing those videos, putting it out there, just saying this is who we are, what we're about, and I'm hearing it a lot more in the conversations I'm having of just asking the question: do you have a wish list of companies you want to work for?
Yep.
And some people say no, not really, but a lot of people are saying actually, yeah, I do. There's 5, 6, 7 companies. I don't know a lot about them, but I've seen them online and they look really interesting.
That's the bit.
I love the science, and that's what you can kind of work with, right? Especially in the biotech space, but any sort of organisation.
What you can see.
Yeah, it doesn't. Right. Yeah, it doesn't have to be the product or what you do. Just your company culture. If you're pushing that in terms of who you are and what you're about and what your values are, what it's like to work there.
Yep.
If you are genuinely a cool place to work for that is going to be able to attract people yourself, then show it. And like you said, people may not be saying, I need to work there right now, but the minute you do put that job posting up,
they
already know who you are. They're already kind of asking questions.
But the great success story we've actually had with this is with one of the biotech customers working in Oxford, right? Like they were so kind of culture focused that their hiring process was, everyone has to kind of fit this mold to a point. They can bring their own themselves to work, but this is kind of what we value. I want people to value the same. And then we help them scale from 15 people to 50 people quite quickly. And then they were like, we want to visualize it better. So we actually obviously directed a whole piece of work that was like a multimedia promo video for them. And Ivana come down and she actually kind of done the heavy work of like the recording and the interview and the editing of the actual video. But I got to actually direct it and actually ask the questions. And we did it from 3 factors. It was like, let's talk about the technology, the environment and the culture. So we do one promo video that captures all of that through a series of interviews from the CEO downwards. And then we'll cut it into 3 different videos, one for culture, one for technology, one for the actual environment. And we posted that all over their LinkedIn. We had it on their careers page. So if anyone was looking, they then got another layer to kind of go, okay, now I'll watch this. And we've had it with, I think, about 3 or 4 people that we placed there in the end, where they watched the videos and they said, we categorically applied for this job because of the videos. And I was like, yes, it works. It works. It was a success. It really was. And it stuck out. Yeah. And that was,
even when I got the job here, I remember it, like, I think just following the Instagram page and going through, the bloopers.
Did we have bloopers then?
Yeah.
So we did.
Yeah. As if many 5.5, 6 years ago, probably. So there would have been maybe less, what's the word?
Polished.
That's a good word. Yeah, less polished videos. But yeah, if I had a couple of things that I was interviewing for in recruitment alone, it's like, okay, what stands out? Like, you get a genuine feel of the people and the actual personalities a bit more than how innovative every company is, and it's super fast. A job description tells you what you're going to be doing and what they need, and that's about it, really. It's stuff like that will set companies apart, which you need to be doing. And if you're a company and you're genuinely struggling to put that together, I think that's a bigger picture as to why you might be struggling to attract and retain people.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, I think most companies will be safe with that. They'll know what to push and people will be attracted to that.
I think there's a fear with this. I've kind of hit some roadblocks with this as well, where people aren't comfortable putting it themselves out there like that. And when those conversations happen, it's usually because when you start looking internally, it's because they haven't figured it out yet. So they're not ready to, and that's equally fine. At least you've addressed that there is work to be done on like a values and culture piece before you start shouting about it. So I think the last thing people want is you kind of say, oh, we're an amazing place to work, and it's like you get a ton of Glassdoor reviews that say, well, you're not.
Yeah, that is true.
But if you're thinking like that, then you probably have a bigger problem anyway.
Yeah.
Really. Unfortunately. But then that can still be addressed. That can be changed. Like culture's not set on day one and forgotten about forever. You can adapt and change that. And it only takes one person to start a movement. I truly believe that. So if you're still looking to engage and try to pipeline, you got to also then remember things do change. So people leave. Like the direction of companies evolve. And that is where you can start kind of bringing in these passive candidates. Next one we're kind of talking about is going to network events.
Yep.
I don't know about many sectors in total, but particularly within the biotech space and pharmaceuticals, you get thrown so many kind of passes to things all the time. Take it, go and talk to some people, learn some stuff about how it all works, and sell the sizzle and sell the story of what you're doing.
Yeah.
That in turn does it.
Yeah, 100%. It's such a good tool to use, and it's, a lot of times you're going to be at these events regardless, right? Because you want to talk about your technology or your platform and try and generate funding or, partnerships, whatever your objective is to go there. But just by talking to people, just saying this is what we're doing, we might, I think a lot of it comes down to companies being just a little bit more open. And I think that's what it kind of boils down to from a proactive space where people are passively looking. It's just being open and saying, no, it doesn't have to be this role's been pulled. It's just a case of saying, this is what we might need in the future. Just keep it in mind.
Keep in mind, and I think
let's have a coffee about it.
Yeah,
you'd happily do it with someone you've worked with before.
Yeah, you would.
Say,
anything going? Yeah,
anything going. Why not have those conversations with people and just say, look, you've got the skill sets that we would be interested in at some point.
Yeah.
This is, you don't have to go into the fine details, but saying this is what we do, this is what we're like.
It does happen.
Give us an idea about what you're doing.
Yeah, it does happen when you get people that just don't apply because it's too formal, ultimately. Because they're like, I'm not sure if I should apply yet.
Yeah.
I don't know enough, so they end up not applying. So actually, if you had, and we've seen that, where if you just want to make the words are wrong. You see it a lot where they say, oh, you could just make a speculative application. It's like, it's not really what... You don't want people to always know that you're looking for a job, right?
It feels like a big step.
Exactly, and it's like this barrier. So maybe we need to do some work with the wording of it. So if you're interested, you can have a confidential, informal conversation with one of our talent team, HR, with the manager or whatever. It's nothing formal, nothing on the record, but you can just find out a little bit more if you have any questions. If you're confident enough to have that. Flip side to that, put some FAQs on your career site.
Yeah, really easy one. Just what are the difficulties that people are having? What are the questions that people are asking, and then tackle it that way. I think this is probably where intermediaries, just to plug ourselves a bit more, come in really helpful for both sides, because just while that was kind of going on, just thinking out loud of, well, okay, you never know who knows who.
No, true, yeah.
And what you don't want is people going, yep, I'll send in a note saying, hey, can I have an informal chat? And the manager that you're speaking to is really good pals with the manager that you're going to be speaking to at new company, and it gets back, and then you've got these awkward conversations. An intermediary works quite well because you can kind of be that barrier to sort of manage that process a bit better, in a sense. Because I think if people would be you'd be less likely to do it.
Yeah.
In terms of going to someone else that saying, oh, by the way, I spoke with someone that works for you. If you knew there was a third party involved, because we can always kind of take the flack a little bit if someone goes, oh, I spoke to that agency, they told me about this role.
Yeah. It's not unusual for people to talk to agencies more passively in general.
Yeah.
That makes
so it
sense.
kind of acts as that barrier, really. So there is an element of confidentiality to it as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think like the idea of networking and putting yourself out there is definitely a good key one. It really is. Apparently 84% of leaderships also believe in this. that in-person events are actually a critical component of the company's success. So, I guess they're thinking more the relationships, suppliers, just intel. But why not TA as well? Why not talent as well? Should be. That's when I go. I just want to do it for business development, sure, but just building the network and understanding what's kind of going on and being visible. Yeah, because that's your live market. If you're going to an event, it's usually for a thing, right? So you're all there in the same sort of field. So that kind of works. Not everyone can get to those, right? And they can be quite costly. There are other things like webinars and forums that people can obviously engage in as well. The webinars I've always thought would be an easy one, because if, again, I want to do it more where we just kind of interview a client on like through Teams or Zoom, record it and put it online. Tell us about your technology. Why are you a good place to work? People know who you are anyway. So it's not exactly a confidential thing. Yeah. Right, so I think that's a really good one. But again, I think companies get scared of this kind of stuff. It's like, what if they say the wrong thing? And what about this? What about that? Yeah. All right, well, prep them then. Where's the boundary? We're only going to be talking about what you're looking to build, the culture, and why people should join. Yeah. You keep it quite light. It doesn't need to be heavy. Yeah, exactly. I think that's what worked quite well with the multimedia project that you and Ivana did as well, is that you have that outside sense of direction just to sort of say what's important to you, and this is how we can kind of phrase it so you're not getting wrapped up in your own thoughts and overthinking it and saying, well, what about this, what about that? Sometimes an outside perspective does help with that as well. It does. Like sometimes you're too in it to kind of like see the angle and just kind of go, keep this simple and effective. Yeah, and it's a good tool just to be sending to candidates that are coming through regardless. If you've got an interview because you've applied online, just a little video from the hiring managers or the head of the function to say, hi, this is who we are, this is what we're doing. High level, doesn't need to be like, this is an exact breakdown of our technology, or this is an exact breakdown of how we, are so successful, but just something to kind of say, this is what we're all about. 30-second, minute long. A bit more interactive, isn't it? It helps, when someone's doing interview prep, they're going through the website. If you can be sent something, we've seen this work quite well with a couple of clients where they send through like an interview pack, which works fairly well, to a degree. But a lot of times it's quite wordy and quite a lot because it's generic. But if you focused it down and saying, okay, finance, HR, this, that, the 5-6 functions that we've got, how can you manage it that way? And so, right, the head of each department can do a little video about what their team department does, what they're like, what their culture is for that specific team in terms of subcultures. Yeah. And send that along. That's a great one. Take you a day and a half maybe to get it done with everyone. But it's just that little thing that sets you apart and gives people a true reflection of what you're going into. Yeah, I think that's really, really a great one. Yeah. Then there's the next one here is around the employee referral programs. I think that a lot of people think they've got this in play. Yeah. Like, they go, oh, yeah, done that. Yeah. And they go, giving someone 500 quid isn't sorting it. No, it's not. No. And when did you send that out? About 2 years ago? Yeah. So when have you ever mentioned it since, or never? Like, right, okay, so you have a policy for a referral program that you don't promote, ultimately. This is an easy one. Like, dead easy. If you're not using the people around you already, you got to ask yourself some questions, honestly. Yeah. Because particularly if you have got like proper job specs and you're hiring, it's all signed off, you're ready to go to market, why wouldn't you just go to your immediate people you've already hired who you trust and value? Because good people only refer good people. Yeah. It's the only way it works. So sort that out immediately. Yeah. This one blows my mind because, like you said, I think it might end up, maybe it's because we do this every day, but it's such a simple task to say, okay, we need to hire a whatever role, financial accountant. You go to the finance team. Yep, the JD's finalised. Yep. Who do we know as a team? Do we know anyone that might be worth reaching out to? I don't even think there needs to be a financial reward on it. I think it's quite I get it, because you're avoiding, using agencies, but also surely you'd want to work with someone. If I've recommended someone, you're recommending them because you'd like to work with them again. So you know that they're good. Of course, they're going to help out. Yeah, and that's why it's an easier road to entry for candidates that are referred in. Like we get that. Oh, someone's so new and so. That's why we're going to go with them. It's because they're a known entity. But you know what? There's two things with this that's wrong. The value that a lot of companies give their employees to refer someone is quite small in comparison to what you're happy to pay in other areas.
Yeah.
Through LinkedIn adverts, which cost a fortune. Agencies have a value, still cost a lot of money to use an agency. But when someone who you value gives you someone, you go, oh, well, this is just a little something, which again is fine. But you know what? I found, and I always kind of say this even here, the way they ask for referrals is always wrong. And you'll like this football analogy, we'll go down football, right? So when you ask for a referral, you should never say, do you know anyone that's looking? First of all, it's a closed question. Second of all, you're asking that person, do you know anyone that's actively looking for a job? Probably not. Might do, on the off chance, probably not. The question you ask is, Robbie, where you worked previously, apart from yourself, it was obviously amazing, that's why you're working here, who else did you work with that was really good? So here's a football analogy, right? Give me, I don't need to know if they're looking for like transfer or anything like that, but give me like the best midfielder that you know.
Kevin De Bruyne.
Well,
other than Phil Rose, but
of course, Phil Rose is definitely up
on
there.
a Thursday night, man.
What about a defender?
It's Van Dijk.
Yeah. Do you know any of the Liverpool players that are looking to transfer to another club at the minute?
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like you can reel off 3 names like that if I just say to you, give me someone good. But you can't do it so quickly if I actually ask you who's looking.
Yeah. And then you get into this awkward territory of, I don't know if they're looking or not. I'll reach out to them. I just need the names.
I just need the name.
And that's all it is.
Yeah, so it's twofold that. So your referral policy should almost be like, if you've got someone that's looking to kind of work here, then there is a scheme for that. But equally, there should be another scheme for people that are in your network you can bring to the table. Don't need to be a recruiter, by the way, but if you've got LinkedIn and you've worked in previous places and you've got good people that you've worked with previously, we want that information. Yeah. Like,
almost like it kind of leads me into the next point. We talk about pipelining, but you should almost have like a shortlist, and you go, okay, here are and this is maybe something for TA teams to work in tandem with the actual teams themselves, but to go, like you just said, who is good?
Who's good?
I don't, whether they're looking, not looking, in budget, out of budget, who's good? Let's put them on a short list. We can have a list of names, 50 people that would be good for our company.
Yeah.
And then as a TA's job or HR or to engage agencies to do it, say, okay, reach out to them. Are they interested?
I've seen
have informal
really well.
chats with them.
Yeah.
You know, if we were to be hiring, would you consider us?
Yeah.
What's your situation? Where are you at? I'll let you know if something comes up.
Yeah.
It might seem a little bit leading someone down a garden path, but it's how you deliver that message, which I think is the key piece.
It is the key piece, because what we're talking about is passive candidates, ones that aren't actively looking, and this is how you tap into it.
Yeah,
we're not, and I think that's the key message. I've seen this done really well in a hedge fund a very long time ago, where they just mapped every competitor, every area, every person, all in a spreadsheet. So they had all the information. They didn't need recruiters and stuff like that. They got an IT guy in to do it with a recruiter, so they paired them up. So they had a recruitment consultant and an IT wizard, for a better word, and they brought them together and said, right, we want you to basically map out all our competitors, all the universities they kind of get their kind of staff from, all the places that we're losing people to, and we want it on like delivered like this. So anytime we look to hire a quant developer, a trader, or whatever it may be, we can literally look at it and find out, well, that person from that university works here, and map their journey without even talking to them, and then they target them. And they saved fortunes, absolute fortunes, doing that. It was a big project for them, and they had a ton of money to throw at it. Yeah, but it worked remarkably well because they had all the intel. So that's I've seen it work really well in some cases, but that's real kind of extreme kind of levels. Yeah,
I think that's what it all boils down to, though. It's that intel piece. It's just knowing who's looking, what are they looking for, you know, and being able to match that up, really.
Yeah, but also looking at trends. So if we're kind of agreeing two things here, right? We're saying that if someone refers someone, they're more likely to hire them because they come from a good background. But we've got these collective people that we're already kind of working with. How much work do you reckon people do when they kind of go, let's just double check where they came from, like what companies they typically come from, what university they typically go to, and there's your trend. And you can almost just that could be your pipeline. Say actually, we for whatever reason we only hire Harvard graduates, right? So let's just kind of target those guys and girls because we know typically that's kind of where we're going to find people. Or if we know we get it from this particular company because they're a lot larger than us and they do the same sort of technology, let's just kind of go there.
Yeah.
And just map it because one day they will come back.
Yeah.
What's the longest time it's ever taken you to get a candidate to market?
Candidate to market?
Yeah. So like a passive one you knew was brilliant but just wasn't ever looking. Not looking.
6 months?
Yeah, 6 months.
Maybe even longer.
Mine's 3 years.
Jesus.
And I've just placed her. Literally. Well. Yeah. And we even joke about it and you know who you are. 3 years I've kept in touch with this person and it's like, I'm not looking. Had an opportunity here and there. And in the end, right place, right time. And this role come out and within half a second, I was like, this is the person you need. 3 years. And she was like, yep, this is the role. And I was like, I know.
Finally,
we're here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 3 years. Long years.
Yeah, but then, you know, yeah, that's a prime example of, can you do it yourself? 100%. But it's going to take you 3 years, minimum.
Yeah.
To genuinely, to build for a company that, in the fields that we work in, where they are SMEs and startups, you don't have the luxury of a database of people, a list. But you've got your own networks, and we hear this a lot of, a 5-person company. Here's 10 million, go and grow it. And you should probably be able to use your own network from the get-go because you know enough people in the market that you've worked with previously or know through the universities or whatever, through your own network you can grow. But that will only get you so far.
Yeah.
You can absolutely 100% do exactly what we've just spoken about in terms of building out these pipelines, knowing who's available. But it's going to take you, months on end, hundreds of thousands of pounds at least.
Or resources, definitely.
Of resources, and the know-how, and someone to actually manage it all and put it in a place where it makes sense. And I think that's kind of where we come in a little bit because this is all we do. So you kind of say, look, these are what I look for. And a lot of success we've had is saying, fine, get that completely, let's meet, let's talk about the culture, let's really understand the business. So that when you do say, right, we've got something coming up in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 months, whatever distance of time it may be, we can be the intermediary to have those conversations and manage the expectations the whole way. Yeah. Because it's not fair. Someone that's genuinely immediately available or can start very quickly and needs a new role, they either aren't working or absolutely despise where they're at.
Yep.
It's not fair to have those conversations of, we might need someone in 2 weeks, we might need someone in 3 months.
3 months, 6
you don't
months.
want to lead people down that path of just wishy-washy, bullshit, basically. But if there's someone that's genuinely, look, I'm in the same boat that the company are in, where it's, I don't need to leave, I'm quite happy where I am, but they're cool, I kind of like what they're doing. And on the flip side, the client can go, okay, I kind of like what they've done, there could be something here, let's just have a conversation and see where it leads to down the line, where both parties are happy to do that.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we can come in as that intermediary to kind of manage those expectations.
Yeah.
And companies can do it themselves, to just be a bit more honest and say, we don't need someone like you right now, but we might. And it might fizzle out into nothing, but there's no love lost. And it goes with people you've already interviewed as well. We've had this recently where people have said, we're not going to consider them because we've already rejected them a year ago. And it's like,
do you know what?
I get it. I do get it.
Yeah.
But if it's purely based on skill set, if you met with them and said, look, culturally they are just not right for us, they're not going to fit the business, they're not what we need. But if you said, yeah, I liked them, they just didn't have exactly what I wanted at the time, even if the role is exactly the same, and you just need to expand the team, grow it by one, how much have they developed in that year?
In a year, in 12 months, yeah. I'm about to say that. I think that's the only time you would not consider it is if they, for whatever reason, come across arrogant or angry or emotional to the process. If it's just purely because a year ago they weren't quite where we wanted them to be, a lot can happen in a year.
Yeah,
a lot can happen in a year. So I think you're right. They should kind of give people another opportunity to do that. Yeah, why not? Why wouldn't you? Particularly again, if it's a difficult skill set.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. That I think there is something in there to do with people's pride a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes it's not right. Sometimes just kind of I didn't write it down or whatever. But I think there's definitely an element of, oh no, I've already said no to this person, so they definitely wouldn't be right now. How do you know?
Yeah, I think you hear it a lot. It's like, you know, they're just not quite there, or we found someone that's just better suited, got a bit more experience.
Yeah.
Whatever, you know, we'll keep him in mind for other things. But actually being honest with people and saying, didn't have this, or this. It can almost give someone a bit of a goal to kind of say.
Well, that's the whole kind of point of the whole like feedback. Ultimately, it's giving people constructive feedback so they can work on it later.
Yeah, you know,
I had to do it before.
We've had it back end of last year. It's a case of fits the team really well, has got the experience, but to do this role, they need to have this qualification, and they've just failed it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
As soon as they get that qualification, tell them to give me a call, and I'll see what we've got. And the next thing that comes up is this. It's a case of going, right, okay, I know why I haven't got the job. That's maybe quite a unique situation, but
Happens.
It could be you haven't got experience using flow cytometry. Okay, go away and get some flow experience. In 18 months, we'd reconsider you when we need to grow the team again. It can be a bit of a kick in the teeth in that moment, but, you know, it kind of gives you something to work on. And I think that depends on the person, because someone say, well, why can't you just hire me now? And then in 18 months, I would have got the experience at the company.
Yeah, but headcount, project deliverables, you know, there's so many things that people don't account for when it comes to just hiring. And hiring is either going to be the most valuable asset that you can actually bring, or it's going to be the largest cost to your business. It's one or the other. They're either going to add value to it, or they're going to cost you money. There's not much in the middle. There's really not. So I think, like you said, it's just being open and honest with them about where you kind of stand with it. It might work today, it might not, but you can't just take punts on it. No. Really. So, no. But this is where agencies kind of have their worth, right? And again, we put this last, like, oh yeah, the good old traditional agency, but we have a pivotal role within this whole like talent pipeline piece. Like it, I lump it, agree with it, I don't, it's true. Like, because we're doing it every day. Every day. That's what we do. It's our job. And it's when you kind of come to us and say we've got a vacancy needs filling. It's because we've got the candidates we're already speaking to. Yeah, sure, you can advertise online. You'll get 13% of the market by the active market, but the other kind of 80% is passive and not looking. And that's the bit we're tapping. Yeah. So what do you want? The right candidates right now, or the right candidates for the job? Yeah. That's it.
That's it, right.
Plus, ours really is that. We qualify a candidate, they might not get placed for 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. Yeah. We are pipeline, and that's kind of what we do. Yeah. And you think about the actual value that we just offer when it comes to the quality of the hire that we actually make. Again, customers paying us for the service, right? So we want to make sure that we do the best by the candidate, best by the client. So yeah, we are going to go above and beyond to find you the best person. It's what you're paying us for. Yeah. Ultimately.
And if your process is a mess, we can come in and solve that. We kind of give the best impression of your organisation to the candidate as well.
I always say to people, like, we're an extension of the marketing team, extension of your talent team. That's what you got to look an agency being. And if they're not doing that, then you shouldn't be working with them.
No, we're not calling from Northreach. We're calling from the company.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, we're still an advocate, aren't we? We're an ambassador.
Yeah, that journey, they won't remember the agency name. They'll remember the company name that went through, the meetings that they had with the company, and that process.
Yeah, they might remember the recruiter. So the actual individual recruiter, I still get phone calls from candidates I placed forever ago. Yeah. Because they remember like the experience. I had one the other day, 12 years ago I placed him. 12 years ago, they said, oh, my wife's looking for a job. I was like, I haven't spoken to you literally in 12 years.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I'd have been...
I don't want to know, Robbie. I don't want to know. When you look at them really like that, I would have been like, no, I'm out. I'm completely out here. So there's loads I think you can do, but I think the key takeaways for me is like use your social media. You know, use the kind of freebies as quickly as you possibly can in terms of getting good post graphics, online, use webinars, interviews with managers. I think all those things are fabulous. We didn't really touch on it too much, but you can do podcasts, blogging, just talking about things that you're kind of passionate and interested in, and actually promoting that again, careers pages, things like that go a hell of a long way.
Yeah.
There's definitely a couple of pieces there that you can do. Use agencies, outsource it to like trusted people that actually know what they're doing. There's plenty of things that I think people can actually do ultimately.
Yeah, 100%. It's just being loud, being seen,
being loud,
being present.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be we're hiring. It could just be we're growing these areas at some point. This is what we look for. This is what we always keep an eye out for.
Yeah.
Think of us if you're looking.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing in the market. This is how our products are developing. This is how the business is growing.
Just share the intel.
Just share what's happening.
Yeah.
And that people will see that and they'll be attracted to that if you're putting the right message out that
definitely
resonates with them. If you're just only ever putting out a job the minute someone leaves or you need to hire and you put a job ad out on your careers page and on LinkedIn and go, hopefully people will see it. It's the companies that...
That's the trick, hopefully, right at the start.
Yeah, hopefully someone will see it.
Yeah.
And if they do, they'll be in budget and they'll have the right situation and, everything else that goes with it.
Yeah.
But if you're active online at events, people will know the name so that when you do hire, that they're a lot more interested in it and you're getting those better attraction rates.
Definitely.
You're growing the talent pool organically into just the awareness piece.
Absolutely.
It all boils down to.
Use your employee referral programs. I think if you, like I say, I think it's having the policy in place is one thing, but be an advocate for it.
Yeah. Be
really
loud about it.
Push it. It's definitely kind of a great one there. We didn't touch on it, but I think it should be an obvious one. Continuous engagement, just keeping people, we kind of did actually, keeping people just informed around what's kind of going on through social media. It could be newsletters or whatever it may be. I think that's a really good one. Make it personal, making it personable in terms of how you're communicating. So it's not just ChatGPT kind of like templated, responses and stuff like that. You can sniff them a mile off nowadays.
Yeah.
So even if it is just a phone call to say, didn't work out this time, or we haven't got the right job for you right now, and even if there's just email, that's fine, but make it personable. It doesn't necessarily have to be just like the template. Computer says no today, sorry.
Yeah.
Try again next time.
Yeah.
And we did touch on this quite a lot at the start. Invest in career development. So I suppose that kind of goes twofold in succession planning.
Yeah.
But definitely kind of look at how you can, where the gaps are going to come from ultimately. So if you're promoting someone into a new position because of growth, change, whatever, what gap is that potentially leaving? And that's where you can do your pipelining.
Exactly. And just make it as seamless as possible. I think that's the key takeaway, is how can you act fast ahead of time so that you're not impacted further down the line where you're going to feel it.
Yeah.
You're not going to feel it in the early stages when you might need someone and you're already 50% there, rather than, okay, shit, we do need someone now and we're behind the curve and we're losing out people.
Yeah, definitely.
There
you go.
So yeah, that's that.
I'd say so, mate. I think there's lots of kind of good things that you can do. I love the fact that really what we're saying is just be more agent.
Yeah. And you know what? We're not even, I think...
I don't say that arrogantly either. It's just like...
Yeah.
Just do what we do.
Yeah. And if, I think unless you're going down that retained search route, a lot of times if you're kind of saying we may or may not need this, there's no cost to you either.
Not on contingent.
As a client on a contingent, if you're doing it on a more contingent basis, worst case, you just got to spend an hour with us, which I promise ain't actually as bad as it sounds. It sounds a lot worse than it is.
It does, yeah.
But half an hour with us,
and you'll know.
Yeah, just go and just tell me about what you do, what you look for. If I know anyone, I'll let you know.
Yeah, figure it out from there.
Yeah, and hopefully, when we do find someone good that you actually quite like, then the cost comes in.
Then you're happy to pay us.
Yeah.
Like it. We've got a really interesting podcast coming up next. Tech and Touch with Billy McDonald.
Yes.
But he's talking about human touch, not just random touching.
Yeah. Or AI touching.
It's Tech and Human Touch with Billy, who's a good friend of ours, obviously, but a talent acquisition specialist. I was going to say expert. Don't want to give him too much kudos. But he's definitely more of a strategist when it comes to talent.
Yeah.
So he's really into this whole kind of AI movement. So we've got quite an interesting podcast coming up with him next. But this one was fantastic, mate. I think we definitely covered some good ground. So good, as always, chatting with you on it.
Yes, I'll be listening to the episode with Billy and looking forward to the next one.
Take it easy, man. Thank you.
In a bit.
In a bit.